Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Marvel Mania. I'm Captain Logan. Here's DJ Martinez. DJ, I don't think I was actually playing sound with that intro, but everybody got to see it, at least.
Silence is golden.
Anyway, how the heck are you, man?
Oh, I'm fantastic, man. I'm excited. I like this movie. I'm excited to watch it with you.
Feeling better? Ready to finally make this thing happen?
Let's do it.
It is time tonight to do the Into the Spider-Verse commentary from Marvel Mania. Now, of course, this is another movie, 2 of these in a row, that I already have a commentary for on the channel. I did this one with Dan Torrey, I don't know, a couple years ago, a year and a half ago, not too long after it came out. And it's nuts, by the way, DJ, to think that this is already like 2.5 years old. This movie's old enough to do on Rewind already.
Should get on that.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, that's not me promising it this year. I don't know when that's going to happen yet. I want to say, probably right before the next Spider-Man movie, except I also have the other 2 MCU movies to do, so I'm real behind on stuff. So, gotta do that eventually. Because we already have a commentary on the channel, I don't want anybody to panic. We're not gonna do a crazy gimmick like we did last time. So we don't have like Spider-Ham showing up this evening. That's not gonna happen. But we are gonna listen to DJ talk about his time on set as an extra in Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah. They actually was just welding in my shop, and then all of a sudden the ceiling opened up, and I just got sucked into another dimension. No.
He's like, why are there these words everywhere?
Why are my thoughts so loud?
I want to talk about that whole thing. Because the last time I had some different thoughts last time I watched this that I'll want to get into a little bit. But for the most part, a lot of my opinions have not changed, and my thoughts about this movie will be similar to what they were before. Dan and I were pretty thorough last time, so like I said, no gimmicks this time. But I am gonna do something I've done before on commentaries that for movies that I've made already, which is I'm gonna pretty much let DJ do a lot of reacting and talking, and primarily only respond to questions. So if you have anything you want to ask me about, or the both of us about, just like topics and ideas and things about the movie that you want us to make sure that we address as we go along, be it in the scene we're in or just the movie on the whole, throw those at us periodically as it goes along, because I don't want to just sit here and repeat myself the whole time. I'm sure I'll say some things I've said before, but I don't want to treat this as if I've never done a commentary on this. So as always, if you want to make sure that your question gets discussed on the air, you can leave a super chat in any dollar amount, but don't feel like you have to do that. That helps us a lot here on the channel, but we're going to answer other things that are not super chats as we see them, and that's my preamble. That's all I've got to say. This is a really fun movie. It's going to be... I haven't talked a lot with DJ about it. I know DJ likes this movie a lot, but...
I do.
Wow!
This is amazing, by the way. Highly recommend this.
Is that the art book, or...?
Oh, yeah. It's so beautiful. It's so pretty.
I've heard that. It's so pretty.
It's got all... Of course, I open up to like just a picture of desks and storyboards, but there is pretty stuff in here.
Kellen O'Rourke says that DJ can be a little animated.
I like the pun. Solid pun. Solid puns all around. Everybody throw your best pun in the chat.
Man, I've been having to send the pun police after my wife lately. She's been telling like the worst possible sort of dad jokes, and I don't know if she realizes this. She's not a dad. So let's go ahead and get into the movie if you want to watch it with us, and we suggest that you do that if you can. Get out your DVD, your Blu-ray, your digital copy, however you want to watch it. I don't think this is on a streaming service at the moment. This is one of those, Sony has it, and it's not on Disney Plus kinds of Spider-Man things. But I'm sure that you can rent it on Amazon and places like that. I don't know what it costs. I don't know if this is a Venom situation, but I'm sure a lot more people probably own this that are watching right now than had Venom. And so
True.
Make sure
I actually have this one, guys.
So I don't have that version. I have I think the
beautiful.
Yeah, mine's not like a and that's not a steelbook either, but I was going to say mine's not that one. Mine's the Target one that came with like a small like storybook sized booklet, and I think it's like a mini art book.
Oh yeah. I wasn't impressed. I wasn't interested in any of the store ones. This is actually an Amazon exclusive. I specifically had to look this up because I didn't like the Target one, so I went and hunted this one down. It was kind of hard to find.
Pretty cool looking. I wish it wasn't just the. You know what I don't like though? I don't like the cardboard shells that are just over the normal Blu-ray. Like I wish the Blu-ray case was different.
Yeah, I wish it was something special, but they probably just mass produce these and then just make a bunch of these and stick them in. Because I don't think it's any different.
I mean, I'm not dogging on you. That's cooler looking than the one I've got, I think. I'll grab mine real quick. Actually, I don't know if that's cooler than the one I've got. Yeah, give me a second, because I might be actually mistaking mine for my Homecoming one. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it doesn't have a booklet. Give me a second. I'm gonna look at. Look at it.
The Homecoming one from Target is really cool. I got that one. It's the yellow one, the big box one. It's super cool. I love the Disney releases. They do a lot of cool stuff. He's back.
Yeah, so it is just this, it's this box, so it's not like the normal box, but it's also not a real super special looking box, and it's that cover, and then it did indeed come with a booklet, but it doesn't like fit in it. It was one of those things that they like just taped to the back. Man, I hate that, because there's nowhere to put it in your collection. You know, I can't like fit it in there. I gotta like tape it back on or something. I don't know. I don't like that.
Yeah, that's weird.
Anyway, well, let's go ahead and get into it. Get a timestamp 0. Get ready to press play when I say now, and I'm just about to do that. Yeah, Daniel Davis, it was on Netflix, but it has changed since then. Let's go ahead and get into it. Everybody, please press play right now. One of the many things that makes me forget that I'm watching a cartoon when I see this movie, DJ, is that it is feature length. So, like, you can, and I say it like that because you can be an hour, 20 minutes and still be considered feature length. Not today, because very few live action movies are less than 2 hours, and this movie is almost 2 hours long, which is nuts for animation, and it's doubly nuts for as ambitious as this animation is, I'd say.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. I actually watched the alternate universe version on the Blu-ray today, and it is 2 hours and 38 minutes because they just put all the storyboarded scenes that they didn't use back in, and there's like, it's, even if they are like, some of them are like contradicting. Yeah, only one area where you got bit by the spider was contradiction, but yeah, they had a lot of stuff that they cut out before they even animated it. It was just like on a storyboard level. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so you would just watch that as an interesting piece of history. It's not like a cohesive movie at that point.
No, it's not. And it starts with the Spider-Ham short, which I don't know if you've seen that, but it's really funny.
Mutale, Cap, is this the first Sony movie to move you?
Probably.
One of them, no, I mean, I've liked some of their Spider-Man movies, certainly. Maybe I was more moved by this one than some others, but Amazing hit me in some places anyway. I love the origin.
Oh yeah, I love Amazing.
I've got huge issues with the third act, but I love the origin in that. If you watch this movie on Blu-ray, because I put in the disc for the first time, I've always used my digital copy before, and that's what I'm using right now. But I was like, I own the disc, I'll put the disc in. So I put the disc in, and DJ, they went so above and beyond that they have a like slider, like the slider at the bottom where you fast forward and rewind and turn on subtitles and stuff, is made to match the movie. So like it looks like the animation style of the movie. It's really cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
It looks all comic booky.
Yeah, I love it. The animation in this movie is beautiful.
Yeah, Stussy, I did not know that there was that alternate cut. I'm glad you mentioned that, DJ.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It starts with a Spider-Ham cartoon. It's all like authentic, like the cartoon starts before the movie and then it goes right into it. It shows Spider-Ham getting sucked out at the end of the cartoon, and then he obviously comes in later.
So I'm gonna cry massive foul that they didn't end up doing that. Why on earth wouldn't you have a cartoon before the movie? That's really cool. That would have been a really classy move for a thing like this. Because it does feel like, it's so weird. Simultaneously, while I'm saying that I keep forgetting I'm watching an animated movie, and that, and I've said this a bunch of times before, but this movie made me feel like superhero movies don't need to be live action anymore. That like, you can give me that experience, but go as, full tilt with your action and your special effects and stuff as you need to tell the story you're doing in animation. Like, there's a part of me that after this was like, I don't think we really need live action superhero movies anymore at all.
I would
But
be totally fine if all the superhero movies that came out look like this.
But at the same time, it also feels like a celebration of animation and also of comic art.
Absolutely, it's a huge homage to comic art, and it's a huge celebration of 2D animation, even though it is 3D animation. But I don't know if you know this, they specifically slowed it down to twos instead of ones. So every frame holds for two frames instead of one to give it that, because that's how you do 2D animation. So it gives it more of that flat 2D animation look, because they really wanted to bring that look back. And then they also did like little 2D animation over the 3D,
That's
which is
so
really cool.
interesting. Like, how much work did that have to be? You basically made a 3D movie that you killed yourself to make feel like it was in 2D. They could have just drawn it.
Which is so weird, because I've heard people that also like don't like 3D and complain that 2D's not around anymore. Also not like the animation in this movie, so I don't know.
Some of that could be the motion sickness effect, though, because it seems like 1 in 20 people have that problem with this movie. Austin has never seen it because he got sick watching the trailer. Like, he can't look at this movie.
That's so weird.
And I've heard that from a few people, but very few. And it's not a taste thing. It's not them going, ugh, I don't like that. It's they literally cannot look at it.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like me with
interesting.
3D if I got sick looking at 3D.
Yeah, because I don't, and that's interesting that you don't have it, because I guess I would think it would be kind of similar to that, but yeah, I don't understand that criticism, because I don't have that, so it's hard to.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I don't, given my weird eye thing. But I guess it has nothing to do with that. I don't know what causes that with people. But yeah, I mean, it's essentially just watching something with dropped out frames.
Yeah, and they do some stuff like with the strokes and stuff that may cause your vision to vibrate a little bit, because they do some stuff with their style and like the shading and the half tones.
Specifically with like movement that it throws people, and then I wonder if those people can watch the Lego Movie.
I haven't seen that, so I don't know.
Oh, you haven't?
That's another thing that's 3D that's made just trying to look like stop motion, though. So I could see maybe that might have.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the only other franchise I've seen that is doing this kind of effect. And of course, at least one of the writers on that is working on this, so I'm sure that's part of why they thought of it. Because they wanted. They're playing a lot with style, so they're going with the Lego Movie. They're going, okay, we're literally making a movie about kids playing with action figures. You don't know that until the end. Spoiler alert for DJ, who's never seen it. But but it turns out that what you're looking at is actually figures being played around with by kids. And then in this, it's less meta than that, but it's like well, it is and it isn't. We'll talk about it because I have a slightly different read on it than I have before, but it's like from my last viewing. But it's like, okay, we're gonna literally turn it into a comic book, and what would that look like if it was actually moving?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely love the way this movie looks. I have never been as inspired by a movie as this movie in the theater. Like, it made me want to create art. Like, as soon as I got out, like I want to work in that style all the time. Like, I had so much fun making the promos for this Mania because it's just so cool. It's like it fits so well into my artistic style anyway, like with the collage-y stuff that I like to make. And I just love this movie. It like blew me away in the theater. I couldn't close my eyes. I was just staring like a kid in a candy store the whole time.
Killer Rourke didn't expect. Well, and yeah, you being a graphic designer, I'm sure this hits you in a totally different way than it would me. Yeah, didn't expect that just little insert of the Dickens book Great Expectations to be like a huge character thread through the whole movie. You just have a guy who goes Great Expectations, and then it like matters. Yeah,
well, we just need to talk about how freaking tight this script is. Like, it's such a tight script. Like, everything matters.
Alchemex has been a big thing in comics in the last, 8 or 10 years now. That's one of the few things Dan Slott did that I actually thought was kind of cool, bringing in that company before 2099, into the present day as we're transitioning into the future. I always thought using Alchemex in the present was a good idea, and we're doing it here. And it's the Alchemex spider that bites him.
And here we have the I guess I won't. I was gonna say something that would be a spoiler for WandaVision, but I won't want to say anything yet.
Oh, I think you were gonna. I was like, DJ, you've done these commentaries before. You have to worry about spoilers in the movie we're talking about.
We have one of the characters from WandaVision.
Wait, we do?
Yeah, that's the neighbor.
Oh, I guess it. I forgot about that. I didn't even put that together. Okay, I didn't forget about that. I didn't put it together.
I mean, not the character, the actor. Sorry.
Kellen O'Rourke. Yeah, I didn't know. No, I get that, but I didn't know that. Kellen O'Rourke didn't expect Chris Pine to be an excellent Peter. Almost wish he could appear in live action. I never would have thought of that either. And if you would cast him in live action, I would have cried foul initially. But if Chris Pine, it's funny because if he's voicing the Peter that dies, who's grown up and has had a really good life and is like basically being rewarded for doing the responsible thing, right? But if you took Chris Pine and you cast him in real life, I would think he would be the guy to play the like schlub Peter, who's helping Miles learn how to be Spider-Man through this show, like through this movie. Like if you did a live action version of this, I would cast Chris Pine as that version.
Yeah, you could probably do that. We'd have to get a dad bod first.
Well, that's not hard. Christian Bale would do it. I'm not saying he'd be a good Spider-Man. I'm just saying if Christian Bale needed to get a dad bod in order to play that part, he'd do it.
But yeah, the cast all around for this is amazing. I'm excited. The thing I really noticed watching it through this time was what's her name? Who plays Gwen Stacy?
I don't know who that is.
It's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, she is.
I don't know the cast in this movie.
I just watched her from Dickinson. So I really recognize her voice this time going through because I've watched a couple seasons of her on that, and she's playing young Hawkeye, and I'm really pumped for that because she's awesome.
Well, although the guy voicing Aaron is the guy from Luke Cage, right? Is that Cottonmouth or is that a different actor?
Yeah, Mahershala Ali. Yeah.
Yeah, he's perfect for this.
It's a crazy cast.
Even though he's playing a villain of sorts, he's less scary than I've seen him in a lot of things I've seen him in.
Yeah. Haley Steinfeld, that's who it is. She's awesome.
Almost wish
Zoe Kravitz.
And this is maybe just a preference thing. I almost wish they'd gone a little farther with him, especially because of the guy voicing him, because he would have been wonderful for the comic version, and it would have been neat to see a character arc where, and a character dynamic between him and Miles, where he's kind of more of the anti-Uncle Ben, kind of beginning to lead him down the wrong path. We don't quite do that with this. Like, yeah, they're doing graffiti and stuff, but he's not the terrible role model he is in the comics, and I might have liked to have seen that. I like what they do with it, fine. I don't like it as well as what Bendis did with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because he is a terrible role model, but just Miles doesn't know that. Like that's why his dad doesn't want him hanging around him, obviously. Yeah. But he just dies before we get to that point, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what I mean is, I'd like to see him begin to influence him a little bit, almost like a Clark Lex kind of thing from Smallville.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where if it was a series, we probably would have done that, but it's a movie we got to get.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Especially when you're gonna throw a bunch of other Spider-Man characters in there. Of course, the Spider's gotta have 42 on it because that is just a number we can't get away from. And I always assume it's a Hitchhiker reference, even if it's not, because why else would you use 42?
I think they said it's a...
he's going to be Blade. I forgot all about that, Daniel. Yeah. I didn't remember that. Rendeva says he was Richard Tyler. We're talking about Mahershala Ali was Richard Tyler in the 4400. I haven't seen that show in so long. That must have been the first thing I ever saw that actor in. I've been looking for an excuse to go back to that show, and that will be my excuse. And I mostly say that just because it ends on a cliffhanger, and it's the most disappointing thing ever because you want that season 5 so bad. And so I've never been able to go back and watch it again. Here we're establishing the crux of Miles' character arc, where unlike Peter Parker, it's not about his doing a super irresponsible thing that has a lot of really negative consequences so much as it's him just being motivated to live up to his potential in the first place. That's more what his arc is about. So he wants there to be no expectations, and he doesn't want to have to go to this school, and even though he's got all this potential, and the spider powers make you have to start living life and do things.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I really don't like that. I don't know how you feel about it, but I really don't like that the stupid catchphrase is like known to the public somehow.
What catchphrase? I don't know what you mean.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, I see.
That bugs me.
There's comics. Like, I don't mind it in this universe. If it's like that across all the different Spider-Verses, it might be a problem, but this strikes me as, like, we've got a world where everybody sees Spider-Man as a hero. He's been doing it for, like, 20-something years. Like, once he passes away, he is, like, as much of an institution as he is just a superhero. I kind of buy it. I get the sense he probably, like, gave an interview somewhere and said that Uncle Ben told him that, and then it just became a big catchphrase. Like a world where everyone knows he's Peter Parker. I don't think you can argue with it there, right?
What do you mean? Well, they don't know he's Peter Parker yet.
Oh, that's right. They don't, do they?
No, they find out when he's dead.
Okay. But he's doing a lot of public stuff in the mask, though. He's cutting albums and things. I guess that's why I always do this. I always forget that he's not a public Peter before this, because he acts like one.
Well, and that's what I have a big problem with referencing the Tobey movies in the beginning of this, because it's like they want to do a meta thing and reference stuff, but then also it's a different Peter. Like, they go out of their way to make this a very different universe. And it's that Peter, it's not our Peter. So are we supposed to believe that the same movies happened in his universe, even though everything else is super different?
Yeah, it's awkward, right? It's very much a having your cake and eating it too thing, where they're throwing those references for an audience that is only familiar with the movies, that, like, kids that grew up with those movies and became adults. And that's probably most people, right? Like, I bet a lot of people that aren't me and you, that didn't grow up with comics but watched those movies and that was huge for their childhood, probably wouldn't have even questioned that. They're probably, wait a minute, is this the same universe? They're probably just thinking that's standard traditional Spider-Man stuff.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, the first time you watch it through, it's fine, but after you watch it through and you realize that all of those little comic things that each character does, it's about that specific one. It's not about...
Okay, but it's funny you say that, because I had that the first time around. I was like, why are we doing all these Raimi references in this universe? And I had that thought right away. I was like, is this supposed to be the same universe? No, it can't be. And then immediately I'm taken out. I don't mean to be like a continuity prude, but immediately I'm taken out because I'm like, okay, but why didn't, when he's doing the emo Spider-Man thing, why isn't he wearing a black costume? Did you have that? Like...
Yeah, I don't like that. It's weird, and I hate that it's in there because I feel like this movie's gonna outlast the Raimi movies by, like, a long shot. Not just because I think it's a better movie, but because I think it's, like, a really important movie in, like, animation history.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't watch this without getting those references.
Cinematographic, why would you ever reference the Maguire movies? Well, because they were really popular and they have stuck with people. And
I like this. This movie is really funny, actually. I was surprised how funny this was the first time I watched it. And I know Phil Lord, the two guys are known for comedy, so I shouldn't be surprised, but it actually hit me in a lot of comedy places.
Did you notice that some of the soundtrack in this is a little bit reminiscent of things like Birdman or Whiplash?
It's a very diverse soundtrack. Like, it does have a lot of that percussion in it, but it also has, like, it's got the hip hop influence, and it also has, like, a whistling track, a couple tracks with whistling that gets stuck in there forever.
That's interesting.
It's always in my head.
Really eclectic score, yeah.
And then, of course, you've got the Prowler theme, which they use an elephant sound to get that, which is really cool.
Yeah, a lot of the kind of pratfall comedy or slapstick stuff in this I don't find funny in a lot of things, but works here okay. And I don't know if part of that's because it's animated. Like, again, it's walking this line between being a very kind of traditional live action superhero movie, but also being a cartoon. Like, I mean, this is maybe the obvious place to go, and I don't know if I've ever said this before, but this movie is it basically feels like if Pixar made a Spider-Man movie, right? Like, that's what it is.
Yeah. I really wish, I mean, it's going to sound stupid saying I wish it did better, but because it won, Best Picture, and it did really well for what it is, but I wish it did even better because I would want more studios to do stuff like this, not just Pixar.
What was sad about the Oscar is that it kind of felt like it won it because it didn't go up against anything major.
Yeah, I don't know what Disney did.
I'm not saying it didn't deserve it. I mean, I put it in my top 10 of the decade. Like, I said, I don't know. I said, I'm in that video. I said, I'm surprised that people herald it as being as great as they do. Like a lot of people talk about this like it's one of, if not the best superhero movie ever made. And I said, like, I don't have that. I think it is overrated. And as overrated as I think it is, I still put it in my top 10. Like, that's how good it is. I'm like, it is overrated. It's also still really good. It's just not quite that far to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it deserved that award, but I don't know if it would have. I guess this is just a criticism of course, the way the Oscars are handled. I don't think it would have if it went up against anything.
But you might be on. So good.
No, you had.
I was just gonna say you might be onto something with the whole like he did an interview thing because there's deleted scenes on the alternate universe version which were really weird where there was like a Spider-Man movie. There's a lot more stuff with his roommate Ganke in that, and he shows him the Spider-Man movie to watch the training montage to help Miles learn how to, like, Miles learns a secret really early, or Ganke learns a secret really early in that, and he's like making him, and he's like trying to help him and everything, and there's a movie that they're watching, a Spider-Man movie with a commentary on it where they say that it's actually Spider-Man and he's got like a voice modulator talking.
Fascinating.
Really
That's
weird.
going a little far. I'm kind of glad they cut that. But
I'm glad they cut most of the stuff they did. They really had a good eye for what they needed to cut.
Bizarre. Yeah, well, and it's cool that they just threw stuff at the wall and saw what stuck, and then they had a keen instinct for what to get rid of. I mean, that's wonderful. But Gank is weirdly missing, and it's strange he's here at all, given that he doesn't get anything to say, and he's not even the best friend. He's just the roommate initially, and I assumed that was because of what they did with Ned Leeds in the MCU movies, where it's like, well, he's here just as a nod to the comics, where like that's supposed to be his main the main member of his supporting cast, but we've already basically done him live action now, so he's around, but he doesn't matter. So it's interesting to know that he used to have more to do.
Yeah, he had a ton of stuff to do. I think they may have just cut him because they didn't have time for that whole subplot. But yeah, he comes back a lot. He actually gets bit when he's with him, like they're in the music room at school dancing is when he gets bit.
All of the villain music in this is really ominous and suspenseful. They do a wonderful job balancing tones there too, the comedy versus the suspense.
Yeah, I actually looked more into the composer for this after I started listening to this, Daniel Pemberton. He has a lot of crazy range. Also did your favorite movie, Harley Quinn.
Oh, great.
So he can do like.
I don't remember the music in that, so whatever. Red Davis.
It's like really bombastic.
That's because Gank
stuff.
was in the MCU. I think Phil Lord talked about that. Okay, is it possible it's both? Like, is it possible that they cut some of the stuff they put in there because retroactively they went, he's got too much to do because of Ned Leeds? I don't know. DJ, the big thing that I thought of, and I want to know what you think of this, that I kind of wanted to talk about this particular commentary, is it feels like, because I said there's not that same meta component with the Lego Movie, but there weirdly almost feels like there is the more I think about it, because we don't come right out and say It's not the Turtles Forever thing, right? We don't come right out and say that there is a real world that is our world where somebody has drawn all these different universes of Spider-Man, and then we put them all together. But
Yeah.
even though, but like, first of all, you have, of course, this comic look, and you have text boxes and everything. But something I never thought of before, or if I did, I don't remember saying it. Maybe I have said this. I don't know. Is when Miles gets bitten by the spider, he's all of a sudden more of a comic book character. Like, we don't start doing all the text boxes and stuff until he gets bitten. So he already looks like he lives in a comic world, but it's almost like he becomes self-aware. Like, I don't mean Deadpool-wise. I don't mean like a fourth wall-breaking character, but he suddenly is, like, aware of thinking in narration boxes in a way, where he's like, why am I thinking so loud? Why is that a Spider-Man thing? It's almost like a comic superhero thing. So when he's like, wow, why am I thinking so loud? It's like, I mean, I realize that the way Spider-Sense works in this is different than it usually is in other Spider-Man things, but that feels like you got bit by a spider and now you know you're in a comic book.
Yeah, it's walking that line, because it's not, he doesn't see the boxes. Like, it's not, it doesn't go all the way, but he's definitely aware that he's thinking to himself a lot more. Yeah, when he's yelling
like, no, like down the side, it's not like he can see that happening, but you never...
It's not like Winnie the Pooh, where he can grab onto the text and climb up.
Yes, he's not in a storybook and able to grab on all the stuff in the storybook, but at the same time, he wasn't having those thoughts and things before that. It's interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know how far that... It might just be a visual storytelling thing.
But we could have been doing it from the very beginning. There's a deliberate choice made to not have it happen until he gets bitten.
Mm-hmm. And I just don't know what they're trying to say with that.
I don't either.
I love the effect, by the way, the glitching effect.
You really should, regardless of sensibilities, DJ, go back and watch the Lego Movie, because this movie cannot exist without that.
Yeah, I plan to. I mean, I have it right there. It's on my shelf. I just haven't got around to it yet.
Well, I just didn't want to sound like I was pressuring you. Like, watch this movie, DJ. I didn't know why you hadn't seen it. Maybe you don't care. But I'm just saying that, like, you would find it interesting, because I don't think this movie can exist without that movie.
I absolutely think it could be one of those things, because I don't really care. But I also wasn't excited about this movie, and this movie completely won me over. Just want to say I didn't realize it until I looked at it closer, but I love the Green Goblin design in this movie, because it's the ultimate monster goblin, but it also has the, like, traditional Green Goblin, like, fantasy-looking hat, and pumpkin bombs are on his waist, and he's got wings so he can fly like the regular goblin. It's like the perfect melding of those two goblins for me. Obviously, I hope he, like, can speak, and, you know, that he could be a better villain than he is in this, but I just like the design a lot.
Yeah, I don't like that look at all. Like, I kind of hate it. I've never liked the Monster Goblin thing. I don't like it in Ultimate, and...
Yeah, and I grew up with Ultimate, so that's
sure,
like...
fair enough, but
like
yeah, I don't care for that. But you're right. The main thing that makes that a problem for me is just that he's a big growly monster. He doesn't talk. He's not really a villain, and I like a villain that gets to do anything.
Yeah.
I don't have the Green Goblin thing that Dan does, where, like, Dan's obsessed with that character, and he's not my definitive Spider-Man villain. I think Dan makes a good argument for why that should be considered Spider-Man's main villain, or his arch nemesis, or that you can make the argument between that and Doc Ock, but, like, I don't care as much about Norman Osborn as some other people do, but I still would prefer a traditional Norman that talks and that can... And that has the, you know, multiple personality thing and all of that. But this movie's not about him, so it was weirder that they used him. Like, that could have been anybody.
Yeah, if you look in the book, when they were storyboarding, the original plan was just to have him be normal kind of looking goblin, but he was like 20 feet tall, like a Godzilla type thing, and I'm glad they didn't go with that.
How would he have gotten that big? That's strange.
Yeah, but I think you could absolutely, like, use this cool design, but have it like a beast type thing where he still has his intelligence and
he got bitten by a radioactive giant.
Lewis Cox gives a super chat to say, Captain Logan and DJ into the Geekvolution verse.
Yeah, man, you're in it right now.
What would that be? I really want to know what in the world has been going on in Chris Pine's Spider-Man's life, why he's so exhausted going into this fight. Like, you can tell, like, in his breath before he even starts doing anything, he's like super exhausted and like at the end of his rope.
I'm assuming that there's a whole like video game.
This happens right after the 2000 Spider-Man game where he fought all of his villains.
Yeah, exactly. He's just there's a whole game that you play through before you get to this moment.
Gosh,
this was the moment that really cemented this for me as possibly a special movie that was not afraid of anything.
Exactly.
Like, in an animated, and again, like I could have seen Pixar going this far, but like in an animated Spider-Man movie that you assume is going to be more of a kiddie thing, Kingpin kills their Spider-Man with his bare hands, and I'm like, okay,
by punching him,
we got a movie
so hard.
Here. And that's not me going like yay violence. I'm just saying like it's not just a kiddie thing at that point. You're like, okay, this may have some weight to it. Like that's not gratuitous. That's going like,
no, it's exactly the opposite.
This is a villain that is like very strong and he's capable of that kind of thing and he's ruthless and he is the Kingpin and you're like, oh boy, we've got the Kingpin. And also I didn't expect the Kingpin in this either.
Yeah.
So like that was exciting.
And I did not expect Liev Schreiber to be such a good such a good Kingpin
I forgot
voice.
He was voicing him. Isn't that cool?
It's amazing. And he must be like a huge comic book fan. Did you ever see that?
He is.
I should have got it out. He did he presented a comic book documentary like in the early 2000s.
I was about to present that as evidence for why I know he's a big comic fan. Yeah.
I have that back there. It's a humongous gold case. It's a really weird.
He did it at the exact right time in his career also, because it was before everyone gave Origins this giant backlash.
Yeah. No, yeah, again, the cast in this is crazy. Like, they said they basically got all of their first choices. Like, it was like one of those things where like, oh, Nicolas Cage would be perfect. Yeah, but we can't get Nick Cage. And they asked him, he's like, yeah, sure. So, like, everybody they asked was just totally down. Just super cool.
Well, and of course, everybody knows he's a big, giant comic fan, and he hasn't had, of course, the best track record with comic movies, so I'm sure he probably... And, I mean, he does 1,000 movies a year. I'm sure he jumps at the chance to be in something like this where there's not as much pressure and it might be really good, and if it's not, it's just a voiceover, so who cares? Like, he's done a couple things like this now. He voiced Superman in the Teen Titans Go movie too, and he's really funny in that.
Oh, really?
Teen Titans Go to the movies. Yeah, they cast him as Superman because of his history with Superman, with Superman Lives, and it's very funny.
He's so good at well, I was gonna say voice acting, but he's not voice acting in Kick-Ass. He's literally there, but he's doing like a very,
that's one of my favorite performances from him, which is hilarious. But yeah, he's amazing in that.
Yeah.
Almost made me want to see him play like Adam West in a biopic or something.
Ooh, that would be great. He might be a little old now.
He could play elderly Adam West in a biopic. Adam West did live a long time.
Yeah. Just play Adam West talking about his time on Batman.
Yeah, exactly. It would basically just be him recreating Adam West naked, and then every time Adam West like tells an anecdote and Adam West naked, then we just go back and go to some younger person playing him. But then that's kind of the way the TV movie that sort of kind of did the backstory for that movie actually did it. Do you know about that?
No.
It's not good. I'm going to do a rewind for that eventually, probably. It's called, what is it, Back to the Batcave? I can't remember what it is. But this TV movie in the mid-2000s that had Adam West and Burt Ward, like running around dealing with, like, actors that were still alive that had played villains actually being villains. And then they'll keep flashing back to what is essentially a biopic but like an exaggerated comedic biopic about the making of the 60s show, and they rebuild everything. Like, they rebuild the Batcave set and everything, and it looks amazing, but it's not a very good script.
Ah, that stinks. And here we have Zoe Kravitz playing Mary Jane, of all people.
Yeah. I'm glad you're reminding me of what all the voices are. I always forget.
This is, by the way, my favorite Stan Lee cameo. It gets me every time.
It's up there for me. It's really
I
funny
teared up in the theater at this.
It's nice. It's really tender for a second, and it's really classy, and then he's just a total con man, and it's the best.
And it's also funny. Yeah, it's the perfect cameo. It's like, it's sentimental, and it's hilarious.
Well, it kind of embodies everything about Stan Lee, right? Because he liked to constantly make jokes like that, where he'd act like all he really cared about was money or fame or whatever, and he'd be like, I'm great because I'm me, and like right after he'd say something like really, kind of half profound or tender or something, he'd be like,
Yeah, well, and it sums up the whole movie too. Like it always fits. It's like the perfect log line for the whole freaking movie. And this is the first one that came right after he died, so it really, I like teared up in the theater.
Yeah, and there's a really good, and fair enough. I mean, there's also it's funny because like as amusing as that gag is, the no refunds ever thing, it's also kind of a good metaphor for getting the spider bite and being stuck having to do the responsible thing too, if you think about it. You know what I mean? Like you can't give it back. Like once he puts that suit on, he's stuck with it. Like he can't give it back. It's not like he can stop having spider powers. I would have never thought of that, Reed, if you hadn't said that. So thank you, because I'm going to file that away. That's going in the rewind.
Yeah, it's the best cameo. It deserves to be on the top of all your Stanley cameo lists. I know you'll have your lists on Letterboxd.
I think you may be right about that. I think maybe it is his, at least from a writing standpoint, like I think it's objectively his best cameo.
Yeah, even his performance in that one's good. Some of his performance in some of the other ones, that like some of the stuff they give him to say is not very natural, but that one was,
I mean, it helps that
great.
he didn't actually be there, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, you can say it as many times as you want, Stan. Don't worry. You just have to record it.
So you're just making me think of all you're making me think of all kinds of things that I've not talked about with this before. I said I was gonna only answer questions.
There's 42 again.
Yeah. See, somebody's a Hitchhiker fan. But I'm finding myself talking more about this movie again because I think everything we're talking about is stuff that I've not gone to before. Why don't you go back to the old commentary? It's exactly everything we've said.
Yeah. I'm actually saying everything that Dan said somehow, even though I haven't listened to that.
He memorized that dialogue. DJ, you said something earlier that gave me pause. I thought this was interesting when you were talking about the question of whether this was sort of supposed to be in the Raimi universe originally, and that they had a deleted scene where they went far enough to actually have him watching that movie. What would you have thought if, and I'm not saying what they did is bad or this is necessarily better, but I think this could have worked. What if we had made this a universe, and we've gone even, like really gone with that meta idea I was talking about earlier. What if we made this a universe where there was no Spider-Man, and Spider-Man was fictitious, and then he gets bitten by the spider, and then the Spider-Verse thing brings him a Spider-Man that can teach him how to be Spider-Man. Like, you wouldn't have the pathos of the death of this one, so, like, it would be a different story, certainly. But you could have done that, and that would have been, in my mind, the way to get away with doing the Raimi thing. Like, it would be better that way than in a universe where you actually have a working Spider-Man.
Yeah. It would have to, it would have to be a totally different idea going in, because this is our universe, this Spider-Man, and, like... But if we did it that way, it would be flipped, where this would be our universe, Miles would be our universe, and then the Spider-Man that came in would have to be different one.
Well, the Spider-Man that comes in and teaches him could be exactly the same.
Yeah.
The same one, certainly. I think it might not, if we had done that, I think it might not have thrown people like Eric as much, because there were, and I don't mean to throw Eric under the bus or put words in his mouth, but some people had a hard time getting past the notion of, like, killing off your main Spider-Man in a universe and then following Miles and, like, why this particular universe, that sort of thing. I'm not articulating this well. I'm forgetting what exactly Eric's deal was. He had a whole thing with this. But it would have maybe been a better idea just starting in something that looks closer to our world, maybe? I don't know. I mean, I like what they did, personally.
Yeah, I like that this is a totally different universe, and that actually helped me, because I wasn't on board with this. I don't like the multiverse idea, and I was, like, really trepidatious going into this, but it totally won me over, and I don't have any of, like, that doesn't feel like Spider-Man to me, because this is not our universe, and everything's different, so I was, like, ready for it to be weird, because it's really early on it sets up that this is not our universe, and I really like the Spider-Man that comes from our universe, so I was fine with it.
And I know not everybody agrees with this. I kind of liked that we didn't have any, like, definitive Peter Parker in this. That, like, they were all... Because, we have seen that before. And so, like, the the main Spider-Man you're following is a brand new version that doesn't have the exact character arc that Peter Parker has, but it's a teenage Peter. There's a lot of parallel, or it's a teenage, character, Spider-Man, and there's a lot of parallels with the traditional teenage Peter. So if you're going to bring in other Peter Parkers, it's cool to see a bunch of alternate versions. Because I think Eric didn't like that there wasn't like a straight up traditional Peter Parker in this, and I just feel like it didn't need that.
Yeah, I mean, we had it for a little bit, and he was great, but I think we just needed that little taste.
Well, yeah, but he says not even there because he's older.
Okay.
You didn't have like a
26 is too
just
old.
Like regular 20s or like teenage Peter Parker.
Okay. That's interesting.
But yeah,
I
that
think
never bothered me because I thought I was going to a
me.
Miles movie in the first place. And, well, in fact, I didn't think that. I was really worried that he'd get buried and that this would be about everyone and no one at the same time. And, like, Miles really is the protagonist, so I was impressed with that. And the reason it won me over on the multiverse thing is because I never liked the Spider-Verse idea at all. I always thought it was really gimmicky. I always thought it was really fanboy-esque because that's a lot of what Dan Slott wrote. And it seemed like he was doing too much of a Batman thing with it, where it's like, well, we do Batmans from other universes all the time because of that phenomenon I'm always talking about where you can do like 101 different versions of Batman and they're all valid. I don't feel that way about Peter Parker, but what this movie like really won me over on is the idea that like differentiating it from Batman. It isn't that like with Bruce Wayne you can do 100 different versions of that character. It's that it's this idea of anybody can be Spider-Man. Or Spider-Man could be anybody. That's an argument we've had, and I'm sure we'll talk about that whole thing again.
The Ratatouille argument.
Yeah.
And not that anybody can cook, but
when you get to the end,
it
basically points out the screen, because I had a slightly different read on this too. When it gets to the end, it basically points out of the screen and says, even you could be Spider-Man. Some people, including myself, kind of cried foul on that initially, where it's like, no, not everybody could do that. Like, of course they couldn't. And I think the point, because I've always said the point is they sort of said it wrong, but what the movie is saying is that Spider-Man could be anybody, not anybody could be Spider-Man. I actually have changed my tune on that a little bit now after my last viewing. I think it's saying, if you got bit by a spider, what would you do? I think that's the idea, is that like the responsibility thing is an issue that everybody has to deal with. And everybody has some degree of power, whatever that looks like, ability, wealth, whatever it is. We all have a responsibility to our fellow man. To Red X, I love the Red X truck. We all have a responsibility to our fellow man to do the right thing with whatever abilities we have. The more power you have, the more of a responsibility you have to do the right thing with that. And so anybody that would get spider powers would have to decide how they were going to use them. And so in that way, anybody could be Spider-Man. In the same way, anybody could also be a bad guy with their spider powers, I think is supposed to be the point.
Yeah, and his mom basically comes out and says that to him. She says something like, we all have power and we have to use it. That scene was the I went to, weird way that this ties into the Venom commentary. I went to California that year, 2018, for a work conference, because we use Adobe, all the Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, all those products. That's what this movie was made in. It was made in Adobe After Effects and Adobe Premiere. It was what it was edited in. So at the big Adobe conference that year, they had a big Spider-Verse themed show, and they talked about all this, and they like showed us a sneak peek scene, which was that scene where he sees him at the graveyard, and then they go on the chase scene. And that was the same time that I saw Venom when I was in California. But yeah, cool. They were super proud of this movie.
Was that before or after you saw Venom? Because if you'd saw Venom first, you would have already seen that scene they put in the after credits.
It was before. It was before Venom came out, because I saw Venom the day it came out, and this was a couple days before.
That's funny.
Before the theater.
So I really like the way this... Oh, that's foreshadowing. I didn't remember that. Where
the mouth?
Yeah, where he gets the webbing on his mouth before he's going to do it to him on purpose. Yeah, that's great. But yeah, I like the way this Peter is pathetic, but hasn't completely lost it either. Like, he still has all his training. He still has all of his experience. Like,
he still has the Peter... wit still, which is really refreshing.
You shouldn't be able to tie up Peter Parker even if he's put on some weight and is kind of saddened at the bottom of his rope, and keep him tied up for any amount of time. I really like that. He is still Spider-Man. He just has to find himself again. And they both get character arcs. I think I made this point in the other commentary, but we have a sort of... I mean, it's not straight up dual protagonist, but he's the only one of the other Spider-Men that gets, like, a full-on character arc, I think.
Yeah, Gwen gets a mini one, but it's not much. And this is the way to do a team movie, right? Like, you follow one, a couple of them get character arcs, a couple of them get mini character arcs, and then there's 3, like, fully realized, entertaining tertiary side characters.
One of those movies that I wish had existed before certain team movies came out. Where you're just like, man, if only people could have seen this before they made Justice League or before they made Suicide Squad, or would have made no difference probably. But
yeah, no difference. I doubt Zack Snyder would looked at this and like, oh, I want to make my movie like that children's film.
So I said earlier that I loved the idea because I had no idea there was another cut of this, man. But I buy these things and I never look at the features anymore. I get busy and I never bother to put them in. But you mentioned that whole thing with a cartoon that plays before the movie, and now I'm thinking, as much as I would have wanted, as I totally want that, I'm thinking they could have done that with 2099, and I'm really glad they didn't, because that would have hurt my feelings. If they'd opened this up with the 2099 thing...
that would have been sad. I think it's the perfect thing for the end. But yeah, I actually kind of think they were smart not to put that, because it's kind of like what Incredibles does, where, like, Jack Attack is great, but it's better after you've seen the movie, because the way Spider-Ham gets taken out in that directly ties into this movie, and it would be weird if you saw at the beginning, because then you'd be kind of waiting for him the whole time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good point. But I mean, at the same, it's that catch-22 where it's like, well, this thing was merchandised so hard, most people coming in are going to know that character's in the movie.
Yeah.
It's always hard to walk that line and decide, like, what is okay to play as reveals and what to pretend like you're not going to know is coming, but how much it's okay to be informed by the fact that the audience knows what they've come for also. Yeah,
it's also just a tone thing. Like, I think it would have... Yeah, if people were used to watching cartoons before movies, it wouldn't be a problem, but sometimes, like the Deadpool thing, like, sometimes the tone is so different than the rest of the movie that it's like, or not the Deadpool, yeah, before Logan, how that was kind of awkward.
Oh, the Deadpool thing. I love that because it puts you in completely the wrong mood.
Yeah.
Like, for most things, I would not like that, but I like that it puts you... There's almost this, like, false sense of security thing where, like, if that was in front of a bad movie or a not as good movie, I would have been like, whatever, but I actually thought it was kind of genius because I wasn't remotely prepared for how great that movie was going to be. Like, Deadpool messed up, like my getting anything like mentally prepared for that movie. I wonder if I would have had as hard of a time going to sleep after I saw Logan if it hadn't been for the Deadpool short.
Step 3, re-examine my personal biases.
Yeah, that's great.
That's most of the humor that I love in this, is like it's so like I said, it's just the script, man, and the delivery is so great on the sarcastic, like, deadpan humor.
This movie also has a great sense, a really good instinct about how to use a MacGuffin, because it's not just a drive that everybody's after because they haven't come up with, like, a real story to tell. That is... I said earlier that Miles doesn't have the same thing that Peter Parker does, but I guess there are some mistakes he makes that make things more complicated. Just not, like, to the degree that Peter Parker usually has that, right? So, like, he messed up with that drive and that, like, he broke it. And, so there's... whether you, like, fully fault him for it or not, it's actions and consequences like you expect with Spider-Man.
Well, he messes up big time later when he leads all the villains straight back to Aunt May's house and destroys her house. I
forgot that was on him. Yeah, good call.
And that's because he's a kid and he's super trusting and he trusts his uncle. and goes to his house because he's so completely oblivious and has no
I'm
idea.
going to say they don't draw enough attention to that. He doesn't get scolded for it or anything later, and I think it's actually really easy to forget that he's the reason that all those villains showed up.
Okay.
Now, I'm glad he's not whining about it, but usually in a Spider-Man story, you'd deal more with that in conversation or something, where he'd be like, "Ah, crap, I really messed up this time," and I don't think there's really much of that. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I don't think it comes out directly and says it. It kind of leads to his uncle getting shot, which is super.
But that's
sad.
what I'm saying, is that after that, like, of course he's sad his uncle's dead, but I don't know how much guilt he feels. And maybe there just needs to be a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Because I kind of forget that he has any responsibility for that. It seems to, because the speech from his dad, and I think it's wonderful, but the speech from his dad when he's tied up later and can't say anything, is all about, like, you have all this potential. And it's basically a believe in yourself kind of message. And it's one of the better of those, but wouldn't it be more dramatic and compelling if Miles... There was something I couldn't put my finger on, DJ, about this character arc, and I think I finally found it. I think you've led us there. And folks, let me know if I'm wrong about this. It's that if he had to, like, find that confidence to be able to use his new powers and stuff and actually be Spider-Man while pushing through not just remorse but guilt, that's much more of a traditional Spider-Man arc and more interesting to me. And I don't get the sense that's what we're doing.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to pay attention when we get to that scene, because I know it's a big deal, like, when he first leads them there, because they're like, "Did you lead them here?" And he's like, no, and then they, like, show up, and he's like, "Oh, I guess I led them here."
Yeah.
This scene is hilarious. So yeah, she's great in this. She's the crazy neighbor from WandaVision.
Yeah, I didn't know that. This movie makes the thing with how the new powers come up in the video game even more obnoxious. Have you played through that?
No, I haven't. I still haven't played it. It's sitting in my shelf.
When you play through the Miles game, it is so contrived in the moment when he finally gets his invisibility and his Venom shock. I hate it because he's been like swinging around being Spider-Man for a while now, and you play the scenes when he finally gets those powers, and they just come up for basically no reason. Like they treat it like this, where it's like, well, he has certain emotions that trigger them, but I'm like, why didn't that happen before? Why is it taking so long? Like, this Miles has not been Spider-Man very long. He just got his powers, and now he's finding his new powers. That one, he's been Spider-Man for months. It does not work.
Yeah, no, they explain it perfectly in here, where it's like a fight or flight thing. Like, whenever he gets, like, completely terrified, it just takes over. That's the most relatable thing in this entire movie. Organize your desktop, lady. That's exactly what my wife's desktop looks like. It's horrible.
I thought you were saying an invisible man walking around with a hard drive and a monitor is the most relatable thing DJ has ever seen in a movie.
100%. That happens to me all the time. I'm so glad it was finally realized.
Anything that crazy happen at your house when I was there for a weekend.
Yeah. It was a slow month when you came. The ghosts are celebrating New Year's.
Stephen Murphy, I would like to have... By the way, real quick, this was a great reveal in the theater. And when you go back and rewatch the movie, there is a couple of pretty decent telegraphs that she's going to be Doc Ock, and I did not call it. I don't know if you did.
No, I didn't. I don't know if I called anything in this movie. I was just, like, on the ride of this movie. Like, I wasn't trying to think ahead or anything. I was just, like, enjoying this movie from beginning to end.
I mean, it's wonderful just from a, like, visual spectacle standpoint. It's kind of icing on the cake that the story's so good.
Yeah, definitely.
And that sounds funny coming from me. Like, story is everything for me, but, like, this is also about a ride to visual spectacle. It does both really, really well. And the ride is certainly serving the story. But I like that none of this is, like, direct versions of anything from comics. So I had this thought when I walked in where I was like, okay, how much of this is going to be like straight up Ultimate? Should I expect Ultimate versions of villains? And there's a lot of stuff that's influenced by Ultimate, but a lot of other things. So like we've got this new female version of Doc Ock who's not exactly anything we've done before, and they're again Norman Osborn they hardly use, but like that's not exactly anything we've done before, and their Kingpin is like more or less, I guess, like a straight up Frank Miller or a Bendis Kingpin, but like
he's straight off the page. Have you seen I think it's Bill Sienkiewicz?
Somebody mentioned that earlier. Yeah,
it's straight off the page from that Miller run. It's so cool.
Is he too exaggerated for this world though? That's a question. Because there's nobody that looks as much like a cartoon character than the scariest character in the movie, and I love the juxtaposition of that. Certainly.
I love it. Yeah, I heard people had complaints with that. I don't know. I love it. He's just so imposing. He just takes up the whole screen every time he's on screen. I
want to say thanks so very much to John Kelling for his $50 super chat. Wow. Thanks very much. He says, hey, Cap and DJ, going to go ahead and ask the big one. What's your idea for a sequel to this film? Oh, and I'm glad that if you were going to go for such a big super chat, you gave us something that we could talk about for a while. Thanks very much. I wouldn't mind an adaptation of Spider-Verse with this Doc Ock and Spidey baddies from other dimensions to eliminate every Spider-Man. Here's $50. Yeah, here's $50.
Here's $50. Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that like, awesome. Throughout the whole credits. But yeah, we can talk about it.
Yes, well, and we can talk about it there some too. But let's go ahead and just real quick throw pitches. That's a neat idea. I am not against if they have to do another straight up Spider-Verse movie, because we know that that's supposed to be the sequel, and I was bummed to hear that because I care a lot more about spin-offs. But if we have to do like, you know, let's bring all the universes together again, or a lot of the characters together again. I would love to see a Civil War type thing where they do the original concept now, but a lot better than in the comics. Because DJ, for this movie, I would have not cared about that at all. Even if it was good, I would have been like, do we have to do a gimmicky multiverse movie? They've earned it now. Like, after this, if they want to go to the original material and go, hey, Dan Slott, here's how you do that, I'm okay with it. Keep Moreland out of it. But if you have somebody, because I don't like Moreland, but if you have, at least in that, but if you have some villain that is going around picking off Spider-Man characters, and they tell a better story than they did in the comics, I would be on board for that now.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about that comic. I was also bummed. I wish that they would just do like a solo movie. I don't even care who it is. Just do one of the solo character movies after this. But so yeah, I'm a little bummed that it's another multiverse thing, but I guess it makes sense because of given the teaser at the end of this with Gwen coming back. So yeah, I'm on board because it's these guys. Like I said, I was very hesitant coming into this, so I'll still be like a little bummed that it's a multiverse thing, but I trust these guys now. I just hope they don't go too much into it, because like we talked about before in another commentary, or in a Captain Logan show or something, this is the multiverse is just kind of there to get the ball rolling in this. It doesn't take over the whole movie.
So I love all the straight off the page Gwen Stacy stuff. I'll talk pitches again here in a minute, but I want to talk about this for a minute. This is wonderfully economical, but that also makes me sad because I would have loved to have gotten into it a little bit more. We've got her rock band, but we don't let the audience know about everybody else that's in the rock band because Mary Jane is there, and
oh wow,
and you've got what's her face, Black Cat is in there, and then they've also. And then they also give you the backstory with their Peter Parker. So she is their version Spider-Man, she's Spider-Woman, because their Peter Parker is the Lizard. And they give you all of that real quick and truncated. And I was surprised that it's straight off the page because, of course, through Miles Morales, they changed some things.
Mm-hmm. She can kind of be straight off the page. It doesn't really affect the story that much, though, because it's just a little quick thing.
She is in my top 3 of characters that I'd love to see spun off and given her own movie, with or without Miles, maybe without him, because I think they have a lot of chemistry. I am fine with a romance between them in the later Spider-Verse movies. Sentence I never thought I'd say before this, later Spider-Verse movies. But getting a movie that is just her origin. I don't want nothing but origin movies, don't get me wrong, but getting a movie where it's like maybe not her origin, but past that, where she has to deal with the lizard and she has to deal with evil Matt Murdock, because that's the coolest thing about Spider-Gwen, by the way, is evil Matt Murdock. He's amazing. Matt Murdock is the Kingpin, and he's still blind, but he's not Daredevil, and he's one of the scariest things in comics. Evil Matt Murdock is scarier than evil Reed Richards to me. Like, he's nuts. And anyway, so I love that movie, and especially in that style, because they've proven they could do it. They could do a whole movie that looks like that with that color palette and all the purples, and it'd be the best.
Yeah, I want a black and white noir movie. Like, just do it.
I mean, obviously, I want 2099 more than I want any of those things.
Yeah, 2099 looks so good in this style.
It would look so good, and Peter David should be brought in to write it. And I would be sad if he wasn't involved. That would be wrong. That would be almost morally incomprehensible to me.
Yeah, and
not
you're talking about Spider.
It would be incomprehensible, but it would be morally bereft to me not to bring Peter David on.
You were talking about Spider-Gwen. She's clearly the most competent Spider-Man in this movie. Like, she's taken down everybody. She's like graceful while the other ones are just flopping around. Obviously, because Miles new and the other Peter's a little older, but she's also. It's kind of, you don't even think about it, but she somehow found a way to sneak into his hard to get into school, and also sneaks into Kingpin's Alchemex, and like she's working there, so she's super competent.
Good point. Yeah, she's super stealthy, and she does all of that without being able to turn invisible.
Yeah, I don't even mean like literally sneak in. I mean, like, she must have did something to get herself signed up with that school, so they didn't. Like, how do you? You can't just walk into a classroom. Like,
well,
do roll.
And not only that, but her ID would potentially look different than it would in this universe. Like, she's essentially a person who doesn't exist. Something we don't deal with in this that could be fun to mess with in a sequel, and I'll pitch you my actual Spider-Verse sequel here in a second,
Cool.
would be to deal with counterparts. We don't go... What's Miles Morales like when he comes over to Miles Morales' universe from a different universe? We see multiple Peter Parkers, but they don't interact. You know, it's our main Spider-Mans, and this is intentional, I think. They're not... only one of them is a Peter Parker, and we do have two, but one gets killed off. None of the other ones are Peter Parkers. And that goes into that whole everyone could potentially be Spider-Man, but there is only one Peter Parker. There's not only one Peter Parker, but you notice they are all basically the same guy. All these other characters are very different people who all come to the same responsibility lesson.
Yeah.
So... What I would maybe do with a Spider-Verse movie, or with a sequel to this, and this could be terrible, but if it was handled right, I think it could be really fun, is you go the full 9 yards with what it started to look like Kingpin was going to make happen at the end of this, which is the merger of dimensions, and you create like an alternate universe or something where you basically do the amalgam thing, and you blend all the Spider-Man universes, and you have a bunch of Spider-Mans who all fight in the same universe. And then by the end of the movie, of course, you'd probably separate them again. But you basically create a world that nobody realizes is wrong, where there's like 500 Spider-Mans. And then you deal with like why that's maybe not a good thing, why maybe that's a problem. I always complained about the title, that we don't really go into the Spider-Verse. We have a bunch of people from different dimensions that all come to this one universe. But then it occurred to me this last viewing that when you get to the end and it does look like the universes are beginning to merge, I guess then we're sort of in the Spider-Verse, DJ.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell with the title. I don't know how much of it is supposed to be like for the audience. Like, the audience is going into the Spider-Verse.
Well, yes, of course. Sure. I get that, but I'm very literal with titles.
Yeah, and I think, sometimes they want the title to be more metaphorical, especially in Spider-Man things.
I would be more okay with that if it didn't have the name Spider-Man in the title at all. If it was just Into the Spider-Verse, because then that feels more like the audience is going in. But when you put Spider-Man up for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, then Spider-Man's already in the Spider-Verse. I don't know. I feel weird about that.
There was a joke that I'm so glad they cut. It was probably just super early, but it was in the storyboards on the other cut where they're sitting in the diner where he says kind of a Spider-Man homegoing. And I was like, whoa, no, don't say that.
Stephen Murphy, some people don't like the idea of a spider cave and ask how he got this and built it. Okay, so yeah, that's a point of contention with this movie. I've always been on the fence about it. I know that's one of the things that Eric doesn't care for and makes it, in his mind, too cartoony. DJ, I kind of feel like, I mean, it maybe messes with the way we introduce Aunt May. That you would have to change that, but that's one of the things that's probably the reason I keep forgetting that he's not a public Spider-Man. If he is public and everybody knows he's Peter Parker, it's easier for me to buy that he gets, like, you know, endorsements and things and gets a lot of money thrown at him and he's able to use it to do things like this. When he's still in secret, I have a harder time with it.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know. We just don't know enough about him. Like, I don't know where he gets his money from. Because if it was that idea, it would be very different because it wouldn't be in a shack hidden in his backyard. It would be more open maybe, but
well, no, that's true. He wouldn't need to do that. Yeah, he could just have the Baxter Building or something.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be explained well. I just don't know enough about him, like how he has all the money. Maybe Aunt May is his funder. Maybe she's a billionaire in this.
And she's just really frugal. She just kept all her money in a bank account somewhere. Because, yeah, like, any way you slice it, it's hard to buy Aunt May still in this kind of, you know, just blue-collar, mediocre kind of house if he's rich. Like, and that's one of the things that makes it feel more cartoony than maybe they want it to. Because in just a, you know, kind of fun, silly cartoon thing, you wouldn't think about the money of it. You just be like, well, you know, just like you don't think about that with the Ninja Turtles. Like, how in the world, just dumpster diving, can you build a turtle blimp? Nobody cares. It's just a silly Saturday morning cartoon. This has more of an internal logic than that, and is a little less heightened than that. So I get why people would wonder, of course, where did his money come from? So what I was getting at, DJ, is it's harder even to swallow the Dan Slott thing where, like, he owns his own company. Like, okay, but then why does Aunt May still live in a house like that? Like,
yeah, I see what you're saying. He can't do it on command.
I like that they all just come at him like that. Because they're none of these people are used to doing anything but work solo. So relying on someone else is a problem.
Yeah, and they're all like, because they're Peter Parkers, they're all like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like, do it yourself, like, make it on your own. So they expect him to just be like, come on, get up, do it. Like, we all did it.
Yeah, I almost said that too, Blowjack 5. He says, we know this Spider-Man is doing endorsements, the comics and Christmas album and product placements. That whole thing is weird to me when you don't have, like, identification. So, like, I guess that's where he's getting his money from, but it's like, how can you be sure you're giving money to the real Spider-Man? Like, do you think somebody, I'm just asking the question, do you think somebody who has a secret identity, DJ, and just wears a mask could get endorsements?
Well, like I said, that might be where they were going, because he was supposedly on that commentary of the movie in that original draft, so they might have thought of that originally, like he was much more of a public figure, but still keeping a secret identity.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. I don't know if that would work, and I don't even know legally how that would work.
Yeah, I don't know. He's staring right at us while he's looking at him, or we're talking about him.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Every line he has is gold.
Everything, he nails it. Hey, look at that! He's turning invisible.
DJ,
this is such a quotable movie too.
I never caught that line before. That's really funny. Would you hold the fort for a couple minutes? Would you?
Sure, man.
Talk to folks
about maybe all day.
Watching this, I'll be right back.
Of course. All right, guys. What do you want to talk about? He's gone. a good question, John Kelly. Where is J. Jonah Jameson in this particular universe? I don't know. Yeah, you would think he would get like a clip when Peter died. Talking about it. I guess there isn't one in this universe. Spider-Man starts a Patreon. Jonathan Campbell. Oh, goodness, Daniel Davis. That's an impossible question. DJ's favorite frame of animation from this film. That's a tough one, man. There's like a bazillion. I know it's like it was used for all the posters and everything, but I still think it's a really cool image where he's during the What's Up Danger montage and he's falling straight upside down with the city. But I mean, that was used all over for the posters and everything, so that's not an interesting answer. But yeah, that whole montage is awesome. No, Mutali wants to know if there's a welder verse. Yes, absolutely. Everyone's raised to be welders from birth. Oh man, this is an amazing scene. Cap's gonna miss it. I cannot talk about episode 7 of WandaVision, Mutali. I'm sure we'll talk about that on the Captain Logan show. I did not, Connor. I only got one title from the Criterion flash sale today. I hope you got in there. Anyone else who's interested, Criterion's having a flash sale today. Only 24 hours. Check it out, half off. Blue Dragon 5, did you know the director of this, Peter Ramsey, was the first African-American director of an animated feature film? Wow, really? Interesting. Oh, Rise of the Guardians. Hence Chris Pine. That's interesting. I didn't really remember
even you could be the welder.
Yeah. Did you hear that? Someone asked that. Someone asked if there's a welderverse.
Yeah, I was watching it on my phone.
Oh. So here's this amazing score. I love this.
Yeah, this is an intense scene. It's just wonderful.
It's so good.
And can I state the obvious? I had this thought watching this last time, and I was like, this sounds so dumb to say out loud, but I gotta. It's so nice that we got a character with a name that could seem as generic as it does the Prowler, and he does a lot of prowling.
Exactly. He's like that's what he does for Kingpin. He hunts people down.
He lives up to his name, DJ. So on first viewing, I found myself initially wondering if the Prowler already knew that Miles was Spider-Man, and if the big reveal was going to be, yeah, I've been chasing you down, and I've just been pretending to still be your friend, but, like, I care more about my job than I do you, so, like, you know, it justifies the means,
Yeah.
You're not going to get in my way, and I like the way it went, but when he's in that room just now, I thought for sure he had to know that Miles was Spider-Man.
Oh, okay. I love that moment when he finds out. Mahershala plays that so well. He's like, you can see how upset he is.
And it's nuts how ruthless Kingpin is, man. He hesitates for 5 seconds and he gets shot. Like, wow.
Another thing in a kid's movie, like, that scene is so heart-wrenching.
And that's part of why I'm more okay with things like, the Spider Cave and silly things like that, because of the juxtaposition. Because we can put all that in the same movie.
And I know I can see some people saying, well, that's why I don't like it, because the rest of the movie's so serious. But yeah, I think I can give him some stuff like that, because...
Mutale, is the Prowler's theme more creepy than the Winter Soldier theme? Maybe on par, but I think you could have almost taken the Prowler theme, put it in Winter Soldier, and we would have still loved it. Like...
Yeah, they're very similar. They both have that, like, screeching...
yeah, that guitar thing, yeah. Okay, there's just something about all of those characters in a 50s style living room that's kind of the best.
Yeah, so there it is, where you followed all their spider senses go off, because he wasn't even thinking, he was just literally just running for his life.
There really should be a line about it. I don't mean necessarily right here, but you'd think later, at the very least, Miles would, like, apologize for it or something. I'm not saying we have to make a federal case about it, but it's a Spider-Man movie, and we don't have the Spider-Man characters talking about the actions and the consequences.
I love Tombstone. I love that he's the right-hand man in this. It's kind of strange how not crazy he is, how crazy they make all the other villains. He's like the most normal-looking Tombstone of all the Tombstones. He's not even blue like the 90s version.
Meanwhile, Scorpion is like Bane or something.
Yeah, it's interesting. They went like a Mexican wrestler kind of route, which is interesting. I don't know why they didn't do green. He's green in some of the concept art in the book. They just dropped it and went brown for some reason.
Blue Dragon 5 just did the quote, "We don't choose the ballrooms, we just dance." Yeah, everything he says.
Everything he says. And the little, like, he's like guessing the Rubik's Cube. He's like purple, and like there's a that was a running gag in the other cut. They had like when they're at the ballroom, they have to like rip this painting off the wall to get into the back room later. And he says purple, and then and Ham says he's not really good with this color. I don't know what he says, but it's hilarious.
One of the big opportunities that I was very surprised to see us take so much in this movie, this is probably the biggest surprise for me with this movie, is just all the villains and characters that we throw in here. And I guess that there's so many characters and it doesn't feel overstuffed. I mean, that's always impressive. But that you have all these villains that you wouldn't expect to see in a Spider-Man movie, or that we can't do in MCU right now for whatever reason. That they go, okay, let's not miss opportunities. Let's do a more like straight up comic book Spider-Man movie. They could have very easily been worried about losing people by not doing more of what you expect in a Spider-Man. But like, you don't expect Sony to make this movie, which is why they should only make animated movies now. Because apparently, I don't really mean that. Maybe they'll screw up. Or they should just give control. The second, I realize this isn't Sony, but like the second Lego movie's not very good. So I mean, like, they won't necessarily stick the landing.
Yeah, it's hard to tell how much is Lord and Miller, like how much is their influence, because they're really, really good at. But they told, I haven't seen them, but they're responsible for the 21 Jump Street movies, and I've heard 2 is just as good as 1 with those, which I haven't seen. But I don't think they're going to be involved with this one for 2, so I don't know.
I don't know what happened exactly with Lego Movie 2. I'd have to look into that. I mean,
because I don't think they're involved too.
Of course, that could be some sort of extenuating circumstances. Obviously, not everything an artist does is gold. You know, the same people could make something that just didn't quite work.
So good with his eyes right there. Like, he knew he was going to die. Like, he cuts his eyes over. He knows as soon as he takes his hands off.
I mean, he essentially, in a way, in the moment, he's making a sacrifice there. Because like, he knows he's not getting out of that alive. He essentially, I don't know, could you say he essentially saved Miles? I mean, as long as Miles is smart enough to get the heck out of there, like...
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe it's not a save exactly because he would be the one that would be doing the killing, but I'm just saying if that had been anybody else, he would have killed him. So, I mean, like, he spared him at the very least.
Yeah.
Daniel Davis, also Lord and Miller, didn't direct the Lego Movie 2. I thought one of them helped write it, but I would have to look it up. I don't remember. I knew they weren't involved with the directing, but I thought they were still in there somewhere. Connor, hi Connor. Sony makes crap, but then they'll give great directors carte blanche, like Baby Driver and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I assumed carte blanche was given here just because, it's an animated thing. We don't even really know what to do with those. Knock yourself out. And my worry is, once they had a successful one, now they're gonna micromanage. Now they're gonna be all over it.
That's what I'm thinking, man. It's like, oh wait, this is important now. People like this. We have to get involved. Like, no, you don't. Just stay over there and give them the money.
Well, because they did the exact same thing they always do when somebody shows a modicum of interest in their stuff. As soon as this movie was remotely popular, they just started announcing
things.
It's exactly that Warner's thing. So yeah, I don't trust that they're not going to have their grubby little mitts all over everything that comes out of this, and that would be really unfortunate. Maybe we'll get lucky, and they'll go,
I hope so.
Just do what you want to. But I mean, you don't trust it either.
I don't. I mean, hopefully it's low enough budget that they don't feel like they're going to lose too much. That scene was basically just a much better version of the X3 fight scene in the house.
What a great point.
Because that scene is terrible, and just another reason.
No one was disintegrated either.
Yeah. I mean, you're just so free with animation, right? Like, yeah, we can do so much stuff. The special effects are amazing these days, and you can do a lot in live action, but you're still limited. Like, there's no limits with animation. It's really refreshing.
Yeah, great point. And one of the reasons that I don't feel like I'm watching a cartoon when I see this is I'm seeing performances. Like, the animation is such that I'm seeing a lot of like real emotional acting. So like when his father is standing over the uncle there, and he's beside himself. Like it feels like a pathos, like a performance filled with pathos.
Yeah.
But yeah, you see what I'm saying? When they walk in, the first thing he should say is, "It's my fault." Like he's a Spider-Man character. And I don't think that happens.
Well, he says that because they say we've all lost someone, and he says, "You don't understand. It's my fault." And they're like, "We're the only ones who do understand."
But no, I don't think he says it's my fault though. He just says you wouldn't understand. Like I'm not seeing the guilt if there's supposed to be guilt. And maybe it's not fair to say that there has to be, but I'm sorry, I kind of feel like there has to be. Like especially because you could make the argument that's. Oh, he does say it. Okay, all right. Okay.
I thought so.
I thought he just said you wouldn't understand. Okay, I retract that. But the fact that I didn't notice it until DJ pointed it out, and that I didn't even trust DJ on it, means it's not enough in the forefront.
I don't know. It stuck with me. I don't know. That scene just really stuck with me.
That's totally fair. Maybe this is just a me thing. I don't think it's enough in the forefront. That is my personal opinion. If you don't feel that way, that is fine. Because it's there. It is absolutely there, but I didn't think it was.
Isn't it crazy that he wears this like store-bought Spider-Man costume for pretty much the majority of the movie? I kind of forget he's wearing it.
He wouldn't if we didn't have 5 other people wearing Spider-Man costumes.
Yeah.
They would not do that. Daniel Davis made a good point earlier about the Lord and Miller thing. He said they wrote the screenplay we were talking about for Lego Movie 2, but he said, I think it's more of an obligation thing than anything. Yeah, their hearts might not have been in it.
Is the Goober a comic book thing, or did they make that up?
That is made up for this, I believe.
It sounds like something Peter Parker would do.
It's weird that goes across universes.
Yeah, that's weird that's one thing that's the same in both. I didn't like that Aunt May says it later. I thought that it would be something that this Spider-Man would do by the age of 38, but I didn't think that 26-year-old Spider-Man and Aunt May would already have come up with that, but
yeah,
I guess that's just something.
That's whatever, but yeah. Blue Dragon 5, I think he started off in a store-bought Spider-Man outfit in the comics too. I think that's right. I mean, it's been 6-7 years since I read that stuff, but yeah.
It's cool. At least they read that stuff, and there's a lot of references to it. It sounds like there was a lot more references to it before they cut out all the stuff.
Have you ever read any Miles? I know you said that you grew up with Ultimate stuff, but did you go into that stuff?
I did not. I always wanted to. I was always interested. This is my first introduction to Miles.
Well, that's true of, I would say, 85% of the country.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that the first big thing he starred in was as good as this. Because now when people say they're Miles Morales fans, I'm not rolling my eyes like I might have been before. Well, because there's a lot of people that just wanted to like that character, but they weren't going to read him, and like that kind of thing always kind of gets under my skin a little bit, where it's like, my favorite Spider-Man's Miles Morales. Oh, why? Because he's trendy? Like, you've never read, have you read him? Do you know anything about that? Tell me what's different between him and Peter Parker. Oh, you can? Oh, okay. Like, I don't mean to be a prude about it, but it's just weird to say my favorite character is a thing I know nothing about. I don't know.
Yeah, and now, I mean, you can be a Miles fan from like a lot of different genres now. He's all over the place.
This is a much better story than that video game, I think, but I think that's getting even some more people into this particular character. And I've had that with other characters too, by the way. I'm not just saying that because this is like another like new Spider-Man that is, it's not just the diversity thing. I had this for a long time with Deadpool. It's like, I love Deadpool. Tell me one thing about Deadpool besides he's a meme on the internet. And like, it wasn't until he finally got a movie. It was so weird when he got a movie, DJ, and then it was like, oh look, people are fans of a character that they now have seen a story of.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a thing that younger people do too. I remember I had only seen Deadpool in like Ultimate Alliance and like my trading cards as a kid, and I was like, I love Deadpool, he's so cool. And then I heard him speak
Yeah, it's all coming back to me now, John. John Kelling says, yeah, Miles wore a store-bought Spider-Man costume, and everyone kept saying it was in bad taste because Peter had just died.
Oh. Well, in here it was really cool. It was like a tribute. Like everybody was wearing them in the crowd.
You could make the case it's a little surprising that Stan Lee had any left on the rack when he went in to buy that.
Well, no, that's Stan Lee. He's a businessman. He was prepared. He bought a whole ton of them. He's actually a mogul. He bought all the other stores out of them and sold them at his store.
And what you don't know is that the costume Miles is wearing right now was actually made in like 1978. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's like a 26-year-old Peter Parker.
Yeah, that's a way too good of a costume to be made in 78. Have you seen costumes from 78? They're terrible.
Solar Dragon,
like
I like.
underoos.
Oh, well, yeah, they're plastic. Yeah. I like Miguel O'Hara from. They did bed sheets okay back then, but not costumes. I like Miguel O'Hara from what I've read of the '90s comic, and then Mutale. I first heard of Miguel O'Hara from Shattered Dimensions. Yeah, a lot of people did. That game. I don't know that it turned a lot of people into 2099 fans, but it made a lot of people aware of that character who weren't before. And right before that, I was finding myself going, I'm really surprised that we haven't tried to bring that back in comics yet. And then after Shattered Dimensions, I was surprised it took as long as it did. Daniel Davis, God, I love the discussion between Miles and his dad. Yeah, I didn't get into that because I talked a lot about that last commentary. But yeah, DJ, if there's anything you want to weigh in on that.
No, I mean I agree. It's awesome, and it does, like you said, it's kind of a stereotypical situation, but it does it so well because it's so well written, and the performance is amazing.
I like putting a teenager in a place where he's forced to listen, because that's a character who's not doing a lot of that before that. It's interesting, right? Comparing and contrasting him to traditional Peter Parker, because they're both characters that, and like a lot of teenagers, of course, in having not found themselves yet, having difficulty in like having insecurities that they have a hard time working through. But Peter, in at least initially in the Stan Lee run, is a character who actually kind of thinks a lot of himself, but is very insecure and kind of socially awkward. So he has a hard time talking to people, but in his mind, he's like the hot stuff, right? And then this character is backwards from that, where he actually is not sure if he has anything to bring, anything to offer, but he uses social skills as almost a defense mechanism. We see that at the beginning of the movie, where he's like walking around on the street, high-fiving people, shaking hands. You would have never seen Peter Parker, nerdy Peter Parker in the 60s being able to do that. They do both have a hard time with girls. He's not that suave when it comes to a woman he wants to date that he's really into.
Well, I would say it's a mix of the two, because what that scene is illustrating is that he's really good friends with all the kids in his neighborhood, but he's having to leave that and make friends at a new school, and he's kind of awkward with all of the people at that school, not just the girl.
And he doesn't want to be there. And okay, so you're just saying that that's a character that's able to get friends initially when Peter did not have that.
Yeah, he's basically me. Like, I really connect with this character. Like, I'm really good once I become friends with people and after I'm comfortable with them, but like first meeting and like for a while I'm really awkward and not good at making small talk or initial friendships.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense that this would resonate with you. I have to kind of go back in time sometimes for Spider-Man to really resonate with me. And remember, not to be a broken record, but when I was a kid, I didn't read any teenage Peter Parker. I mean, it was a lot later before I did that. Like, my Spider-Man was an adult Spider-Man from the beginning, so I was always comparing him to Batman. It was like I didn't relate to the teenage Peter Parker, and so I have to kind of go back to the way I was as a teenager, looking at somebody like Miles Morales at 15 years old.
Yeah, it does not happen often. It rarely ever happens that a movie lines up so perfectly with like my visual sensibilities, my music sensibilities. Like, I love the score of this movie. I love how it looks. I love the characters resonate with me. Like, everything just fell right into place with this movie for me, and that's why I love it so much. I think it's my favorite Spider-Man movie. I still like Amazing more, just because I think
Really?
that Peter is so good. I just for Andrew Garfield as Peter for me, but I think this will eventually pass it overall for me.
I think as far as preference goes, I'm still going to put Homecoming over it, like, slightly.
Hmm.
Um,
I can see that.
but not by much. It still might be... I think I would call it the most fun of all of these.
It just hits me a lot more emotionally than Homecoming does. And the humor hits me a lot better than Homecoming does, obviously.
I haven't seen the back of Spider-Gwen's costume a lot. I forgot she had what looks almost like lightning bolts on her back.
I'm very familiar with that costume because my wife wore it this year for Halloween.
Oh yeah, she looked awesome. That is such a cool suit, and I think that is one of the greatest like modern superhero suits. And I still am very happy that they finally gave her her own name and that Ghost Spider fits that so well. Like, if you don't go back to the Spider-Gwen stuff and you were introduced to that character as Ghost Spider, you wouldn't think anything of it. Well, yeah, that's what it looks like. Like, we took a costume that did not have that Phantom idea in it in the first place, and we added that. And I wish she was called that here, but I think I talked about this when we did the commentary initially, and it was closer to the time, so I remembered it then. I don't now. I think as they're working on this, that's not a thing yet. I think that was the deal.
Yeah, it probably was because obviously comics take a lot less time to make than movies. Someone,
yet, but hopefully she gets it in the next movie.
John Kelling said, "I always find it weird that Mary Jane is attending this banquet being hosted by Fisk. It feels wrong." Well, actually, I don't know if it's in this or not, but definitely in the other cut, Fisk speaks at the funeral, and that's where Miles like freaks out because he's like terrified that Fisk is gonna hunt him down and kill him. And Fisk is completely under the radar still in this. No one knows who he is. No one knows he's a criminal at all. So it makes sense that he would be probably smugly inviting Mary Jane to this.
So it's that Daredevil movie status quo when like he goes to Elektra's dad's funeral and all of that.
Yeah, he speaks at the funeral and he's like, "Oh, me and Spider-Man were so close, so we worked together." It's really creepy and intimidating.
Blue Dragon 5, they cut the Tombstone scene mistaking Spider-Ham for a pig dinner. That sounds like a cuttable scene to me.
Yeah, it wasn't great. It was they're sneaking him through in the thing, and then they pull it off. Tombstone says, "Open it," and they open it, and it's like naked Spider-Ham with just his mask on and an apple in his mouth. It's really weird. And then they close it, and then Tombstone says they're on their way, and then he says they think we're stupid. So he like knows that they're coming in, but it doesn't really play into this at all that he knows that they're sneaking in.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And I kind of like it better if they don't know, because that was such a clever way to do an espionage scene, or to do a for them to be able to sneak in like that.
Yeah.
Because it was like, there's no way we can go in dressed like this. Oh yes, we can. I love that.
And speaking of bad taste, Wilson Fisk is having his waiter staff wear Spider-Man costumes right after he dies.
Yes. That's a very poor taste, but also seems like a perfect thing for him to do. Like that, I love that. That's great.
Yeah, I would say most of the things they cut. It would have been nice to have a relationship with him and Ganke, but I think it's for the better. All the stuff they cut.
Infiltration was the word I was looking for.
There you go.
Steve Murphy, I haven't spent a lot of time with this movie, so I don't have a proper read on how I feel overall. This will probably feel like the fastest viewing I'll have. Yeah, this has gone by a lickety-split.
Yeah.
I thought it would, though. This movie is wonderfully well-paced.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I mean, come on. That's great. The only thing I don't like about this scene is that we don't get to see some of these guys fight any longer than we do.
I know. I mean, you could watch this forever. It's so freaking beautiful, man. Like, I can't... Like, they were talking about in the behind the scenes, like, how they just had so much control, and they just said, just keep pushing it further, and, like, no one stopped them. They're just like, make it crazier. Like, I really hope they have that freedom in the sequel.
Yeah, in the best possible way, it looks like an independent film.
Yeah.
And it's... and that's the problem with the commercial side of this kind of thing, is it's impossible not to be influenced in some way by the popularity of what what came before when you're making the next one. And this happens with television all the time, where like you're on a couple of years, nobody cares, and then suddenly everybody cares, and now there's pressure. And sometimes it's not even just pressure, it's just knowing that people care. Like, that can influence you in unforeseen ways. It's not even always micromanaging that does it, DJ. Sometimes it's just the filmmakers themselves getting the audience in their head too much.
Absolutely.
And like sometimes like being influenced by that stuff for better or worse. Like I'm sure the work I do would be different if I never read like any comments at all, or didn't do live shows and didn't see people talking, or didn't think anybody was watching at all. Like, what I would do, I for better or worse, I would be doing this job differently, and that's got to be true of everybody.
Yeah. And criticism can help or hurt. It depends. That's the biggest it depends question. There was a hilariously bad, I laughed out loud when I got to this scene in the other cut. The Doc Ock character literally says, "The power of the multiverse in the palm of my hand," and I laughed so
I wish
hard.
they'd left that in!
No, I would have been so
That's
mad.
That's so great! No, they should have left it in! That's so funny! No, actually, I'm glad they didn't, because we don't have any, at least, like, dialogue, like direct references like that in dialogue.
Except for with great power with Uncle Ben says it. But yeah, all the Raimi references are in that opening monologue, so I'm glad we don't. I don't even like it there, but I'm definitely glad we didn't put it throughout the movie too.
Well, great power is just Spider-Man, but is there any dialogue in this movie where we just directly lift it from movies that came before?
I don't think so.
That's what that would have made it really out of place, but
yeah,
I like that. That's really funny.
Brilliant but lazy. Someone just says that randomly.
Oh God, don't get me started on brilliant but lazy. Don't get me started on it. I hate it so much. Cinematographic, that makes no sense.
Wrong.
It's true. It actually wouldn't make sense if she said that. What is she gonna do with the power of the multiverse? Like, what is she gonna harness it?
Yeah, I don't know. She's just really that's her most creepy scene, by the way. Earlier when she's like, it would disintegrate you like piece by piece. You know how painful that would be. I can't wait to watch
that cut now, though. Yes. I guess I don't know what that would feel like. I mean, you couldn't know. You know what you do with the power of the multiverse? You tap into it like the Morphin Grid. You make Power Rangers. That's what you do with it.
But yeah, I talked about this. I've never had an experience with something that was so visually striking, where literally like every frame looks like a piece of art.
Yeah.
You could take until 2 weeks ago. I had this experience again, and I highly, highly recommend this movie. It is a movie from like 1953 by Karel Zaman. It's a black and white movie. It's based on like. You got to read a comment.
Sorry, go ahead. I'll read it in a minute.
It's what is it? It's based on a lot of Jules Verne stuff, and every single frame it's made to look like the original engravings in those books, like the original black and white artwork in those books. So like, I can't even explain it. Look it up. It's awesome. It's called Invention for Destruction. It's such a cool movie. It blew my mind. It looks visually stunning.
We didn't talk at all about Kingpin's motivation at all, but that's a real classic kind of twisted, turning the responsibility thing on its head.
1958. Sorry, it's a Czechoslovakian film by Karel Zaman. It's super cool. I just bought it. Criterion is having a half off sale today on their site for like 24 hours, and I just bought the collection. It's like 3 of his movies.
Did you take it away? Somebody had a great joke and took it out.
Oh no.
I think it was Cinematographic that said it, but somebody wrote, "You'll get that reference when you fix this damn door."
That's amazing. Cinematographic, why are you getting cold feet? That's hilarious.
Why would you delete it?
That's amazing. Also, I just want to say it's this tiny little thing, but I love that they let Peter make the choice. Like Peter lets go before Miles lets go.
Yeah.
Like Miles stops him from making the choice, but then after he talks to him, then Peter makes the choice. Really important to his character arc.
Yeah, of course. And again, traditional Spider-Man stuff, like, if you take that away from him, then the consequences belong to Miles. Like, they need to both have their own, actions and consequences.
Yeah. I mean, this movie's just brilliant at setup and payoff. Like,
yes.
It's textbook. Everything they set up, they pay off perfectly. This scene gets so brutal, or this fight gets so brutal.
Yeah, I felt in the theater like this goes on a little too long. The last viewing I had with it, I didn't feel that way as much.
Yeah. It is why I really appreciate that they made it clear that normal Spider-Man in this universe was really exhausted and worn out by the time he went up against all these villains. Because obviously Hugh should be able to do better than Miles, but
yeah,
something was going on.
We also do that typical thing that a lot of superhero movies have, where somebody will try to do a self-sacrifice that they're not allowed to do. That's just kind of like laid on too thick, or is something where you don't buy that they would even have to. And this movie handles that really well.
Yeah.
Like when the other Peter tries to, be the one that stays, because like he's it's not entirely selfless. Like initially, the reason he's doing that is not just for Miles' sake or for the other Spider-Man's sake. It's because he doesn't know if he wants to go home. And that's his chance to just give up and quit, if you will. He can go, I had this one last adventure, and I saved the multiverse, and I don't have any responsibility anymore. I can
use it as an excuse.
I can give up the ghost, as it were. And like Miles will not allow him to do that. Oh, look, it's the opening of Daredevil. Did you see that? See the bridge, the purple bridge.
And it's beautiful how these two arcs work together, right? Because Miles' arc directly impacts his arc, because it's not till Miles comes into his own that he sees how rewarding raising a kid is, and then he's like, do I want kids? Which is a great line.
Yeah, there's that, and I think part of that is because he's reminded of why he did it in the first place. I mean, it takes him back to when he was Miles' age.
It shows him that he's not a screw up. Like, he's like, oh wait, I actually impacted this kid's life in a positive way. I maybe should try that with my own kids.
Maybe my life's not over. Maybe there's
more that I can give.
Mm-hmm. Do you see all those octagons that look like the Kryptonian key from Smallville? Just I saw those octagons. I was like, oh, I've got one of those on my desk right now.
Of course, you just have one of those just on hand. The only person on the internet that can just whip out a Kryptonian key from Smallville on command.
I sure can.
He can't do it on command.
I can't. I can do that on command. I might also be the only person on the internet that could answer a red bat phone at my desk on command. I can also do that. I can
there you go. That's a red Marvel Mania phone. Don't get it wrong. Once we're taking
it's not Marvel the Dark Mania Phoenix phone 3. Though. Sorry, what?
Marvel Mania Phase 3 will be taking live callers, guys, so get ready for that.
Oh, that sounds like a great idea.
We reserve the right to hang up on you if you say mean things.
John Kelling, this universe's Spider-Man was worn out from fighting the gargantuan Green Goblin and having a collider literally blowing up in his face.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, before he even got there, he was, like, winded.
He's saying he was winded when he arrived. So there must have been a big fight before that.
Well, it's just, like, his voice. He literally has a line where it's like, I'm so tired. Like he's just had a week or something. Like, he's just been over this.
Yeah. But I love that. I love that there's maybe this whole other story behind that we don't need to give the audience because it's not relevant. Like, it's really easy to forget that characters' lives don't start when the story starts. Like, you have inciting incident, you have occasion for story, you have status quo that you break, but that doesn't mean that for other characters there's not other stuff going on. It even doesn't mean that another character isn't in the middle of their own story that you're not looking at.
Yeah. I mean, that was the end of a very sad Spider-Man movie for that Spider-Man.
I think it would be fair, maybe goes without saying, that whether you think this is the best of the Spider-Man films we've had so far, it's certainly the one with the most reverence for the source material.
Yeah.
both visually and
which is weird, right? Because
character-wise.
it's the one that takes the most freedom with the source material, but also has the most reverence.
But it's the biggest love letter to all of that.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's the only one that's not starring Peter Parker, but it has the most reverence for the history of this character.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like they completely make up all new versions of the villains, but they still pay so much, like you said, reference to the source.
You know what my favorite thing about how Miles is animated with his new suit. And we didn't talk about like the spray paint and how we feel about all of that. I talked about that in the last commentary, but every time he looks like scared or unsure of himself or scared or something, and did I say scared? I said scared. Scared or unsure of himself, and he closes his eyes real hard. Like I love that look. That's a great look. I love that.
Yeah, and that's another thing in animation that we can do. We can do the eyes like fully and expressively, and it's awesome.
We use the panel, the like comic panel thing, sparingly in this, and whenever we do it, it's very deliberate. And I love it here when they're on the phone, partly just because of the economy of seeing them both on screen at the same time. Phone calls in movies are boring.
Just cut back and forth.
Jumping back and forth can be irritating. When I was in writing school, it was always a no-no to have conversations on phones in your story. You were supposed to avoid that as much as possible. So I like seeing the economy of this, but it's also nice to do comic booky things like that, not just in action, but to remind us what reading a comic book is like in downtime scenes or dramatic scenes of dialogue.
I love that he just starts screaming at his service because he thought he dropped the call. He's such an old man.
There's that look again.
There it is. Now it's a happy one, though. Or like a...
It's like tears of joy. Tears of joy.
I look forward to working with you. I'm going to do that voice from now on. It's so bad.
I think it may have been a misstep in the video games to, spoiler alert for those, but to kill off Jefferson Davis in the introduction of Miles, because it's such a... Well, you played the first Spider-Man game.
Yeah. I've seen that.
But yeah, well, we kill him off in that, and it's... I don't know, it just makes it a little bit too similar to Peter's origin.
That's what I love about this, is he has two parents, and you get to go through that.
And
we still get the Peter thing because it's his uncle.
So far is the only thing that does it that way. The comics, like I think the comics may have killed him off later. I can't remember, but for a long time he's got two parents. I'm not saying it's bad to ever do it, but I don't really love that being part of the origin of this character.
Yeah.
Because I don't like him having a traditional Uncle Ben and a evil Uncle Ben. Like, it should be just the evil Uncle Ben, right?
Yeah. If you're gonna flip it. Don't flip it and also do it.
Yeah, it's weird. Mutale, it's weird Jefferson doesn't question why a kid is being Spider-Man. Yeah, that's a thing that we've kind of accepted more and more in Spider-Man things.
Well, I assume the other Spider-Man has been a Spider-Man since he's a kid, so they might be used to it in this universe,
Maybe
especially if his story is so... I mean, they were reading the Amazing Fantasy issue, so I'm assuming everyone's familiar with that he started so young.
Boy, we just cannot get away from some frame in a Spider-Man movie somewhere where he's on train tracks, or like takes his webbing and shoots himself off a train.
Such a cool ending to this movie that it ends here. Like every other, I mean, we just did the swinging, which is fine, but every other Spider-Man movie ends with the swinging, and this this character ends here and is bad listening to music because that's what he does.
Yeah, he either swings into the audience or he throws a manhole cover.
Yeah. Such a good movie.
Yeah, it's just wonderful.
I love it.
I always
Sorry if you don't like it, guys, because this commentary is probably really annoying for you, but we like it a lot.
Sorry, I missed the first part of that sentence, so I thought you were just like, sorry we did a commentary, you probably would have rather just watched the movie.
No, I'm saying sorry if you don't love it, because I know there are people that don't like this. It's
just
too weird for them, or it's just not what they wanted from Spider-Man.
Well, sometimes DJ and I line up perfectly on a movie, so if you listen to us talk about this, we're going to gush a lot.
Yeah, it's basically like Homecoming, Logan, and this have been our three big ones this
That we
on
just
this Mania.
adore and don't have a lot of bad things to say about. I mean, I had criticisms with this certainly, but
Yeah, I got like little things here and there I don't like. I'm obviously more positive than Captain Logan is. But you know what
not
I
by
really want to watch?
much though. I mean, it's really good.
Yeah, I'm not trying to dog your opinion, man.
Oh, that's what they did, John. Yeah, John Kelly. Thanks, John. John remembers Miles Morales things. The comics killed his mother by way of Ultimate Venom. That's right. But they brought her back
wow.
after the new Secret Wars resets the multiverse and brings Miles into 616, which I hate because now Miles has no origin story, and maybe they fixed that later, but I quit reading that book years ago now. But, like, for a long time in the post-Secret War stuff, it's like it's basically like this where, well, not like this really, because you did have a Spider-Man that died. There's just, he got powers and then he called himself Spider-Man, I guess because he couldn't come up with a better name. And then he sometimes runs around and fights with Spider-Man. Like, I don't know how he got to where he got because he didn't have any of the adventures he had. Like, I guess some of it was supposed to happen similarly. I assume Prowler happened, but I don't know. Like it's like that New 52 thing where we have to cherry pick certain things. It's like, did Bane happen? Did No Man's Land happen? I don't know. It's the same thing. Yes, we also like Black Panther. I think most everything, be it positive or negative, you and I have lined up on. I like the Deadpool movies more than you do.
Yeah, but I like Deadpool 2 more than you do, I think. So it's kind of like they
Isn't
balanced
that
out.
weird? Well, that last viewing, I was like, screw this movie. I'm not happy with this anymore. Like, I like things about it, but I had the worst viewing I've ever had of that on this show.
Yeah. This is absolutely bananas title sequence, by the way. I really want to see, you know what I want to see? I really want to watch Dope now. Shamik, who plays Miles, is in Dope. And then also Tony Revolori from the Homecoming and Far From Home Spider-Man movies is also in Dope. And I've never seen that. Is that a good movie, guys? I hear good things about it.
I've never heard of that.
I've heard good things. I'm sure they'll let me know.
Now,
and you guys love Ragnarok.
Had I been them, I would have. I mean, yeah, you've got to do the tribute to Stan Lee here, and it's classy, and I like it a lot with Stan Lee and Ditko, and I love that they did that. But I might have maybe done the cast list and then gone into the after credits instead of putting the after credits all the way at the end of the credits. With this one, I think it's weird that they make you wait all the way to the end for $20.99. I don't like that.
I think it's cool. I don't know. I think it's the kind of one that I want to be at the very end because I don't want it. I don't know. It's a fun Easter egg more than something that like is gonna directly lead into the sequel. But I know you want it to directly lead.
But
into
I
the
think
sequel.
it will. First of all, I think that's the main reason it's there.
Well, yeah.
And I don't like that people left and didn't see it because $20.99 is better than anything else in this movie. Is the thing.
I like those ones being at the very end. I want to go back to like Iron Man style where it's just like it's there, but you don't have like it's gonna be all over the internet anyway. So,
see, I totally see what you're saying, and I should agree with you.
Speaking of, it's crazy that it's not a Captain Logan show today because I just sent this to Cap before we started. Did you guys see on Tom Holland's Instagram and Jacob Talon's Instagram? They both released the title for Homecoming or the third Spider-Man movie.
And I got messages from other people about it at the same time you sent me that too.
But they're totally just trolling us because they sent two different titles and they're both horrible, hilarious titles.
We will talk about it on Thursday, I'm sure.
Yeah. Phone Home. If they had done that.
I was all ready to talk about it too when you sent me that. Like 50 things came into my brain. Like one of the things I was gonna say is, really, you're gonna call it that after the stupid E.T. joke in Venom? Okay.
Oh, yeah, that was the worst joke in the movie.
That's one of the worst jokes in anything, I think.
Right up there with.
Isn't even a joke? It looks like crappy improv.
Yeah, it's not even. It's just like him trying to do. It's not even an impression though, really. It's just him making a goofy voice, and it's so bad.
While he's already doing a goofy voice.
Yeah, he did goofy voice Inception.
That is an actor Tom Hardy, who should never try to be funny, I think, is what we're learning here. I would go as far as to say Tom Hardy is not even a good like comedic actor so much as some of his dramatic acting is intentionally funny. Does that make any sense at all? Like, he can't pretend to be fun. I couldn't see Tom Hardy on a sitcom or something.
He did a comedy, an action comedy with Chris Pine of all people, where they were like both spies and they were fighting over Kristen Bell. It's a really weird movie. I don't think it's probably funny.
Is he funny in it?
I don't think so. I saw it when I was in like high school, so I don't remember anything
He's
about
too
it.
intense to be funny. Like, the ways he's funny in real life is when like he's in an interview and he's just not having it. Like, he's a really funny guy, but not in like a, you know, constantly laugh a minute witty kind of way. He's too intense for that.
It's Reese Witherspoon. Yeah, you're right, Cinematographic. I always get those two actors mixed up every single time. I can never get them straight. It drives my wife crazy.
Oh, yes,
it's called
Reese Witherspoon.
She looks like Kristen Bell, man. They're the same. They're both short. They both have blonde hair. Give me a break.
Well, I think Reese Witherspoon is quite a bit older than Kristen Bell, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
I think they're around the same age. They were both on...
Are they? Okay.
Friends.
I don't know why I thought that.
Why did someone just write DJ Martinez is daddy in the comments? I'm a little uncomfortable with that.
I'm also uncomfortable. I wish she hadn't read it out loud. Like, I'm also uncomfortable.
Thanks a lot, Ryder.
Like, looking at it made me uncomfortable. Hearing it said was even worse. Was it a sentence he forgot to finish? He put a period.
He did. He pronounced it.
Yeah, weird.
Okay, there's 4 years apart.
DJ, my wife does not like Spider-Man, like, as a concept. Like, she's just never liked that character. But she really likes this movie, and I've shown it to her twice now. And
that seems to be a lot of people's experience. People that weren't interested, for some reason, this bizarre movie gets them into it.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Because in some ways,
it's such a love letter to Spider-Man.
It's cool how anachronistic all this is, right? Like, it feels like a love letter to Spider-Man, but it goes its own way completely. It is a like, not just a love letter to Spider-Man, but a love letter to animation, and like it's a very original animated piece. But I keep forgetting I'm looking at an animation.
It does both.
It's crazy I was able to keep doing both of those things, and not in like an infuriating way. Because I've been saying in my rewinds on BVS that's a movie that's two things simultaneously, constantly, and drives me insane. This does that in a great way, like, and
the only thing that you can call an oxymoron in a positive way.
Yes, and then and where I was going with all that is those two things are true, and then you get to the fact that, like we were just saying, it's a movie that is a love letter to Spider-Man. It feels like it's for Spider-Man fans, but it's apparently also like Tilapia. It's the Spider-Man film for people who don't like Spider-Man. It's crazy.
It's insane, and I feel like it's just magic, man. I don't think they can ever recreate this. It's like lightning in a bottle.
Well, they're gonna try.
Yeah, and I'm glad. I'll let them try. That's just, I wish they were doing a different thing, because they'd be more likely to succeed if they weren't trying to do the same thing again.
The problem is you get a movie that's, and this wasn't the most popular thing ever. It's still serious animation in America, so it didn't do what it should have done, or just animation in America, right? Because I mean, like, you know, we think of the Lego Batman movie as a popular movie. It didn't make the money it should have. I mean, like, it did fine for animation, but it didn't do what it should have. And this is the same way. But even still, as popular as this was, and it won an Oscar, they're not. The very next thing they put out is not going to not have Spider-Verse in the title, DJ. Like,
which is, if there was anything that didn't need the title to recognize, because it's the most distinct style of anything ever, but they're still going to do it.
Oh no, the dad thing has taken on a life of its
catching on. Well, there's the next inside joke for our
DJ into the Daddyverse.
Hey, Papa Logan is the one. If you're not on if you're not in the After Dark Patreon,
no,
Papa Logan.
Don't say it on the main channel.
This is the end credits. This is the end of the credits in a commentary. No one's listening.
We have as many people here right now as we have the whole show. Captain Logan is everybody's dad. DJ is also literally daddy. Yeah.
This is so cool. I didn't rewatch this when I rewatched this for this movie.
Yeah, I got goosebumps, and I expected it, but it's still, the way they revealed it was a big deal to me. And it kind of hurt my feeling. No, I didn't hurt my feelings. I was
so
let
cool.
down a little bit that they did the whole 60s Spider-Man thing just because I was so excited about that look, and then immediately we do this joke, and it's funny, and but I was just very.
It's really funny, but it doesn't make sense, right? Because none of the other ones. Well, I guess they did. It doesn't make sense, right? It's that having the cake and eating it too thing, right? Because they mentioned this song in that universe's Spider-Man as one of the things that he's done. So it's the same thing as referencing the Raimi movies in that universe. Because this show is not its own universe; it is in that universe. So.
Is that the idea? Well, it could be both.
He says he has a killer theme song, and it shows up.
Yeah, but that could exist in a lot of different universes as different things. This is a thing we do a lot with multiversal stories, where it'll be like, where you'll go to a universe where somebody is a fictional character in that universe. I see that as a similar sort of thing. Like that could be a TV show and also its own universe, I guess.
Yeah, that's why I don't like the multiverse. It takes the constraints too far off, and you can just do anything in it. I don't know.
Yeah, the logic that makes that work, if you have to have an explanation, is many worlds theory. Is like anything that can happen does happen. Or
I understand that.
All these universes exist because of choices, like any possible choice a person makes. So those things would all exist. And then the big question you end up with is, why do we care about particular universes over other ones, or why are we following just this universe? And that was the thing that. Believe it or not, there's an episode of I think season 6 TNG that finally does the many worlds theory stuff called Parallels, and it's a lot of people's like one of their favorite episodes of TNG, and it's also a lot of people's least favorite episode of TNG, because for a lot of people, DJ, that episode broke Star Trek for them, because they were like, okay, well. If Worf is in all these different universes that exist just because of different choices he made, then why are we following this one? Who cares? Like, okay, so like nothing matters then. And I've never looked at it exactly that way, but that is the problem with doing the multiverse thing is, okay, then who cares?
Yeah, I'm very sympathetic to that, because that's kind of my viewpoint on it. Obviously I can be won over, but it's like the whole writing, it's like just a writing pillar that like, yeah, you can do. It's like the whole thing where, well, this could happen. This does happen in real life. Yeah, but you got to make me feel like it has to feel real in this story.
Yes.
It's like you can't use it as an excuse. Well, anything can happen in the multiverse. Yeah, but I don't care about that. I want this story to make sense.
Yeah, it's very concept over execution. No, I love that you use that as an example, because I'm always complaining about that and preaching about that with fiction, where like somebody writes a story, and you see this really outlandish thing that happens in it that you don't buy in the context of the story at all, and then they bring you the newspaper that says, like where they got that crazy story that happened. We're like, no, this really happened. There's a bus of 50 kids that fell like 45 stories and everyone survived. Okay, that's a crazy desert island thing. It's amazing that happened. I'm not saying that ever happened. It's amazing that happened. I didn't believe it in your story. It's not fair to bring me a newspaper and then I'm supposed to go, oh yeah, okay, I guess it's actually really good then. I just didn't think that was possible. That's where that's where the idea of stranger than fiction comes from.
Yeah, and I feel like using the multiverse makes it so easy to do that, to use it as a crutch, that kind of thing. Because it's right there, and it's so tempting to just be like, oh, we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I'm amazed that they pulled this off so perfectly, and it's because they used it sparingly, and it didn't influence the story that much. It was just the thing to get the, I can't even think of the word right now because it's late and we've been talking for a long time, but the thing that gets the ball rolling, the
inciting incident.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
But that's why constraints and limitations help you be more creative, and it's really impressive when you open the floodgates and you still get something this creative, because this movie was made as though it had those kinds of constraints in a way, right? Like they did limit themselves to some degree. They could have had a much larger cast of characters. They made sure that they didn't try to give all of those characters, all those Spider-Man characters, their own character arcs. It wasn't about everybody, and they were really smart about that. They even had a whole bunch of different villains, and there was one main villain that we spent the most time with and did the most character stuff with.
Yeah, they nailed that. And I feel like all their choices were super intentional. Like even you said, like which Spider-Man they chose were super intentional, so that none of them were even Peter Parkers. Like they were all, yeah.
Dagan Spear, just watched Superman and Lois Lane pilot. Curious to hear your thoughts when you watch it. We're Austin and I are kicking around doing a blind commentary on that.
Cool.
Reacting to it as we watch it, and then probably maybe a little mini review after that or something. But that's what we're talking about right now. Anyway,
I hope that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trusting it because it's that network, but and those creators, but I want that to be good, of course. Yeah. Anyway. Well, folks, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you had a good time. DJ and I will be back with you again on Thursday for the Captain Logan show. And then Friday will be the third, but not final part of the Batman v Superman Superhero Rewind, because I have turned out to just have way too much to say about that movie. So that's going to end up being in 4 parts. And I got to go start writing part 4 right now. So thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan, and that was DJ Martinez.
Bye, guys. Had fun. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Later, folks. This is great as always.